Hi guys, I'm Mike.
And I'm Mark.
And this is F1 Fanatics. Welcome back to another episode of the Feeder series. We've had a couple of weeks break, obviously, because the coronavirus happened. So the last video we did, obviously, was that Formula 3 season preview with Josh, which was a lot of fun to film. But yeah, unfortunately...
so much fun.
It was indeed. And unfortunately, we have we don't have any... racing to be able to commentate on. So what we thought we'd do is we'd take a look at the series below F2 and F3 and give them a ranking in terms of how, you know, some of maybe the rising stars you're looking into a little bit more, some of the guys you've heard in our videos, what series they've competed in, and I'm going to let Mark kind of take over and explain what we're doing today.
So today, guys, we are ranking 13 feeder series. They may not all be top ones, but they are ones that get the most coverage, and you'll see most drivers have these series on their resume if they are in F3 or F2. So what we're doing is we are ranking them into either four categories: A, B, C, and D. A are the top of the feeder series. These are the ones that if you have a championship in this category, you are a rising star and you deserve some special attention. These are... well, you'll see. I'm not going to spoil it. These are the ones that matter the most, in our opinion. Then you have A. These are also really competitive, top series that maybe have either just started or aren't at the competitive level as the ones in S. Now I'm going to let Mike tell you about the C and D ones.
So the C and D ones are basically the lowest low. C is probably a category. There's still a competitive grid, there's still a competitive calendar, but it doesn't necessarily mean, you know, kind of winning those championships takes you on to bigger things. It's generally usually ones where funding is struggled a little bit, and you're trying to use that as another year to kind of gain influence and maybe sponsorships to progress to higher based series. And in D, this is kind of the lowest low where, you know, you can compete, you're racing, you can get something on there, but essentially the title in kind of circles within the sport wouldn't be looked upon as, wow, this is a guy to take notice of. It'll be like, oh, okay, he competed in that. It won't necessarily encourage either way. So back to you, Mark.
So let's start off with the first one. I'm going to start with one of the most recent ones that have been, just is not the right word, wrapped up much earlier this year, the Toyota Racing Series. I'm giving this the ranking of S. This is an amazing series that is normally right in the winter over at Europe. You'll see many academies sending their drivers here to sharpen them up and send them against some of the best in the world. Multiple amazing drivers have won titles. But the most recent winner is Igor Fraga, who is now in F3. So that is why I'm giving this the S ranking, just because of how competitive it is and how many teams will send their feeder drivers there.
So we move on to my first one, and I'm going to go for the British F3. And it has only been going for 4 seasons, and it has 4 champions, Inam Ahmed in 2017, Linus Lundqvist in 2018, Clement Novalak, the most recent one, in 2019. For me, British F3 is a good competitive series. There are some good drivers who compete in there, but it is more one of guys who couldn't progress to maybe a Formula Regional or F3 itself, so they're kind of trying to gain more support to then progress further up the ladder. So for me, it is a C category.
And I think that's a fair ranking. Fair ranking. So next for me, I'm starting off strong here. It is ADAC F4. This is also going into the A category. This is arguably the top F4 category, with some of the best racers in the world starting their career there. The most recent champion is, of course, Théo Pourchaire, and that, I promise, that is not blinding my opinion. if you ask most people, this is a top F4 category and arguably a mark of a future champion.
I completely agree with you. ADAC is one of the top kind of, especially at the F4 level, probably the top feeder series out there. My second one is going to be the Japanese Formula 3, and this is the most long-standing one, I believe, on the list, starting in 1979. It's had champions like Pedro de la It's had champions like Pedro de la Rosa, Tom Christensen, Adrian Sutil, Marcus Ericsson, Nobuhiro Matsushita, Nick Casti. There's been some great champions on there. I think Japanese F3, we all know that going to Japan, it's almost like a unique circuit, and it is competitive. Super Formula in itself is a very competitive feed. Well, it can't really be classified as a feeder series. It's almost like an outright single-seater in itself. So for me, I'm going to put Japanese F3 in the B division. I don't think many people go across to it to kind of progress on the F1 ladder, but I still think it's quite a competitive series.
Okay, next for me is Italian F4. Arguably also one of the best F4 championships in Europe. But for me, this is an A. This is just short of A and goes into B. You'll see lots of drivers do both ADAC and Italian F4, but the more prized championship is, of course, the ADAC one. It's still immensely competitive grid and really close racing, but for me, it's just that tiny little step below ADAC.
I'd agree with that, and I know
the most recent champion is Dennis Alger,
which is a member of the Red Bull Academy and a popular driver. It'd be interesting to see how he goes. We now move on to my next one, which is the F4 British Championship, obviously formerly known as the MSA Formula. Previous champions have been the likes of Lando Norris, Max Futrell, and Zane Maloney is the most recent champion back there. British F4, I think, is a really solid and good standard. On the ladder, it's a real one there. I don't believe it's as high as some of the other F4s on the list. So I'm floating between B and C, but I'm going to put it in a B category because for a lot of the British drivers, this has very much been the start of their journey. So I think it's one that they often tick off on the list. So I'm going to put British F4 in the B category. Agree with that one, Mark?
I think you're being a bit generous, personally, but I guess I wonder why by any chance, have you been to a British F4 race, haven't you?
Oh, I have. God.
I couldn't tell.
Really, no. Well, it's not on the level of the ADAC F4 or the Italian F4. I still think it's a good competitive racing series for those guys at the base. You know what? It probably is a C category. I'll convert. It is probably a C category for people to then go on to bigger things. But I would say most of the British drivers who have progressed to Formula 1 have competed in F4. British F4.
I would say that's very fair. And next for me is Spanish F4. Next for me is Spanish F4. Now this one's a bit hard because depending on the season, it can change between either C or B. Because some seasons I'd say it's on par with the Italian F4, being hyper competitive with a great grid, but other seasons it's a bit average to say. But considering last season, it was rather good, and we got to see a new talent in the likes of Franco Colapinto, who dominated in his rookie season and drove very well. But for the level of competition for me, unfortunately, it is going to be a C. But much like British F4, we get to see amazing Spanish talent and talent from around Europe. One's very similar to British F4 in that people who race there may not have the money for Italian or ADAC, but it can produce some stellar seasons, so it's a C.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment of it. I'm now going to move on to the F3 Asian Winter Championship. So this has only been kind of a recent one, and it's had 3 seasons so far. The most recent winner was just actually, a couple of months ago. It seems so much longer than that, with Joey Alders competing that, and obviously quite a few guys who were on the F3 grid, and there were some quite big names in the F3 Winter Asian Series this year, wasn't there?
Yes, it seems to. Normally, most of the names would go to TRS, but they seem to now be starting to share the names, which is just, not so good for massive TRS fans, but it's amazing for race fans. You now have 2 series in the off season to watch young talent when there's no other racing on.
Exactly, and I think it's young, so it's a growing series. So for me, it is a C category at the moment. That's fair. There isn't too much there, but like you said, that series TRS, I imagine you're going to rate that higher.
I did. That was the first one.
Of course you did. Wait, let me go. Obviously, the TRS that you mentioned there, you rated higher, and I think that's fair. TRS is kind of quite a well recognised and well sought after title as it stands. With the Winter Asian Series, it's developing, it's in its early years, but I can see this becoming a well sought after feeder series in the future, just because of the super license points and the fact that you can do it alongside other series makes it, obviously, you have the financial backing to be able to compete in multiple series.
Yeah, I would say that's a very fair statement. Next for me is French F4, which is on a similar level to Spanish F4, but I would say it's a bit more competitive because you see lots of the German, French, read from Central Europe the right term for the France, Germany, all that area?
Yeah.
Yes, from Central Europe who can't afford the ADAC or Italian driver, they'll go there. And you also see a few British drivers as well there. So it's good. It's good. I'd say it's I'm not going to put it in B. I'm going to give it like a little C plus if I can.
Yeah, you can give it a C plus.
A little C plus because it's not good enough to be in B, but it's a little step above Spanish F4, I would say.
Yeah, I think that's a fair enough. You've made your note. It'll go in the C category, but it'll be. Everyone's heard you. It's a little bit above. It's a C plus.
Yeah.
So moving on to my next one, and that is Euro Formula Open, formerly Spanish F3 and kind of European F3 Open. This is obviously where the F3 levels are a little bit complicated because there's several series called like F3 and European F3 and kind of like clumping stuff together. It gets a little bit confusing. I think at that F3 level it's higher than British F3, and how am I going to rank this because of my having the formula thing? I kind of feel like a C plus. Obviously, previous winners have been most recently Filip Drugovich, who's competing in F2 this year, and Marino Sato, who also is competing in F2 this year. I don't think it holds as much weight as, the outright F3 Championship, and my last one series I think is higher than that, but I don't think that's an A category. So by default I'm going to put it, a C, but like Mark, I'm going to note it as a C+.
I think that's very fair considering everything, although I could see it moving down a step in a few years considering a new series that has started up.
Oh, we'll get onto that, Mark. We'll get onto that.
I love teasing, you know that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And now, finally, the the question that you've all been wondering, are they actually going to put anything in it? Well, yes, we are, because it's time for F4 UAE. If you thought this means, I'm tempted to even just make a special F category for this.
But then there would be no D.
One of the least competitive grids. It's just you'd expect a series that is cheap to enter, and in a location that is, well, it's rather central. So you'd expect young Asian and young European talent that can't afford the series in Europe or a step above Asia to race there. But no, it's awful racing, and it's not really. Yeah, it's just nothing special. It's nothing special. Yes, of course, you have to have some talent to win a series, but when you're competing against a literal bunch of rich kids who think they're too tall for go-karts and don't want to do go-karting anymore, it's not really that much of an achievement.
And, not mincing his words as usual, Mark, but it's a fair assessment of the UAE F4. You certainly don't see, the top talents in Europe pursuing that series at all. It is all about the ADACs, the Italian F4s, and then maybe the more kind of European regional ones like the Spanish F4 and British F4. My last one, before we move on to Mark's last one, is the Formula Regional European Championship. Now, this is the new one that we are talking about. It's only had 1 year, and the inaugural champion is Frederik Vesti. Obviously, he will be with Prema in F3 this year. Why this series, obviously being younger than my previous one of the Euro Formula Open, is going to be ahead of that, is because it has FIA backing, and there seemed to be a lot of top talent that kind of entered it in its inaugural year. And yeah, I just think this is a series that will grow and grow. So I'm going to put it as a B for the category, because look, in its inaugural year, you can't immediately say that it goes into an A, because there isn't much of a wealth of talent. But you just kind of feel like if they can't get into F3 in a decent seat, they're probably going to go into the Formula Regional. What are your thoughts on that, Mark?
Yeah, I'd agree. Formula Regional seems to be, it may be early to say, but it seems to be the FIA's attempt to create a European F4 title and kind of take away from ADAC and Italian F4. That's what I think they're going to try to do. They're going to try to create and basically F4 Europe and create an even more laddered path into F1.
It would make sense.
That's where I see it going that way. Do you?
It would make the most sense in terms of it. Look, as it has the FIA backing, I think they want to, because like we said, around about as soon as you get below F3, the F4s are fairly kind of clear in terms of their level, just on the experience. Everyone has a good idea that it's ADAC and Italian are the top ones, and then there's a level below that, and then there's the UAE.
Well, you can tell what they're doing by how many super license points they've given it.
Exactly.
They've given it more super license points than regional F4s and all that. So you can they're creating a laddered path now. You can see it now. 25 points for Formula Regional, then 30 for the F3, then 40 for F2. They're creating a laddered path.
Exactly, and
I would not be surprised if they start lessening or trying to bring more attention to Formula Regional and try to take away from Italian and German / ADAC.
Yeah, that would make sense. I think they're just trying to make it a streamlined brand, and
which is needed. I think, which is very needed.
Exactly, and if people know on the ladder They know that, they go to F4, then they progress to F3, then they progress to F2, then they progress to F1. It's a very clear pathway, not only for, those competing. They understand what they need to achieve to kind of get on to the next level there. But if you're trying to garner interest in your feeder series and maybe, getting people attached to drivers sooner, it's a hell of a lot easier to follow than, you have to really follow the feeder series to kind of understand, well, literally why we've got this kind of ranking system in place. There's probably still people who would debate where we've ranked some of these feeder series, because they're all over the place, essentially.
I wonder who has time to follow all the feeder series and pick their favourite drivers from all across them. I wonder who.
Mark! It's Mark, everyone! In case you didn't get it at home, the answer is Mark. If you were too slow, it's Mark. But you love the feeder series, and that's why we do this. In terms of that, and
even I find it difficult at times, because there are some the points are all over the place for different things.
Yeah, absolutely, and it is hard to keep track of who's kind of accumulated what, and passed to F1 and everything on that basis. And so the next one, we'll move on. Spent a lot of time on the Formula Regional there, but it was a worth series talking about. Mark, we'll move on to your next one.
I'm moving into my second to last one, the Formula Renault Euro Cup. This is an old horse of feeder series. It's been going on for a while in terms of feeder series. I would say most feeder series normally last about a decade or two. Well, Formula Renault's been around for about 20 years plus. It's a very well respected feeder series, very competitive, but you'll see lots of drivers move from Formula Renault into F3, or sometimes rarely into F2. But no, there are some. Should I go through some of the famous champions?
Yeah, why not, mate?
We got Lando Norris, Nick De Vries, Pierre Gasly, Stoffel Van Dorn, Valtteri Bottas, Brendan Hartley, Kamui Kobayashi. So it should give you an idea. Then you have more recent ones like Oscar Piastri and Max Futrell.
It's a strong series, and a lot of people do have it on their racing CV.
They do. It's a very... Oh, and Felipe Massa. How could I forget Felipe Massa? The 2008 World... Oh, damn it, that's Glock. And I think I've just now have a Ferrari hate mob coming for me for that joke.
Oh, mate, you've been cruel to Felipe. How could you do that to Felipe?
Oh, I'm sorry, Felipe, baby.
Oh, right. And so, is that...
This is a B. It's a B. It's very good, but it seems to be half the grid seems to be very good, and the other half seems to be neither here or there. So it's a B, it's a B, but impartial would give it an A. But yeah, just could use some. It needs some love. Definitely, I would follow it. It's worth following. I think that's all I can really say.
Yeah, it needs a...
I wanted to give it A, but the level of competition is just not at that level to give it A.
Yeah, it needs a fresh lease of life.
Yeah.
So my last one is going to be the W Series. I think I said my last one was the Formula Regional. I lied. I missed out this. But shouldn't be missed, obviously, because it's a new series. Its inaugural championship came last year. Jamie Chadwick, highly rated by some in some quarters, is obviously the inaugural champion of the series. W Series is now included because you do actually get super license points to the equivalent of a regional F4. I'm correct in saying that, Mark?
I believe you are correct. I believe it is 15 points.
Yeah.
Same as Formula Renault Euro Cup and Euro Formula Open.
Okay. So, look, W Series isn't going to be the highest level because you cut out half the gender in terms of there, but it is a fantastic series for kind of exposure, and there are still some very competitive and talented female drivers.
And what I
within
will say about it is it's probably one of the most competitive grids because of how they assign their drive, how drivers get into it. They go to a test and they take the most competitive drivers.
Exactly, because W Series is free to enter. They pay for them. All they've got to do is get to the airport. They pay for their flights, everything around that. They provide the teams. They provide everything for them. So it is literally the cheapest series to be a part of for showcasing female talent. But half the grid, I would say, not that competitive. Then the other half, promising talent or kind of experienced female drivers who are really kind of pushing the young guns forward. For me, it's going to be in the C category because, well, one, it's such a fresh and early championship, and it isn't meant to be a standout series for women to win at the moment. It is meant to be, hey, look at me, I'm Jamie Chadwick. Now I'm going to progress on to another step up the ladder, or
bad example there.
I know, because she is competing in the second one, but I guess, I mean, I know Mark's thoughts on this, and Mark's thoughts, it's our shared thoughts. We're a little bit disappointed because we feel Jamie Chadwick.
I'm not saying she's on talent. I think she has the talent and speed for F3, and I just think it's a shame she's not there.
Exactly. That's what we're saying. It's disappointing, but it does almost kind of feel like she's backing herself to win W Series again, and to gain.
If she wins it again, she has to move on, and I would love to see her in F3. I know some people would say F2, but skipping F3 straight to F2 is a bad idea.
Yeah, I mean, you just have to look at a female driver who entered F2 too soon in Tatiana Galderon, and to realise they're out of their depth.
F3, but she needed more time in F3.
Yeah.
I think a better example would be, it's not a good example, but at the same time, it's a example. Is Raghunathan. He had no F3 experience, no real F3 experience, and jumped straight into an F2 car and became a joke because he had no idea what it's like. I'm not saying they're on the same level. Chadwick is much faster, much better, but you need some experience in the F3 car. No,
absolutely. You certainly do. And but yeah, that rounds up W Series. It's a C at the moment, and it is a step on the ladder. It may prove in future as the talent, the more years it's exposed, the level of female drivers rises. So throughout the grid is more competitive. It may raise up as a really kind of competitive series there. But at the moment, it's an exposure series. It goes, look at me, I'm a talent. And it has opened the doors for a few female drivers, actually, I believe, or at least increased their profile. So we'll move on to your last one, Mark.
The last one is, of course, I've chosen this one mainly because of it seems to be rising up out of, I won't say nowhere, but it seems to be getting better and better, getting more attention, and that is the Danish F4 Championship. We're seeing some amazing talent come out of it in the likes of Christian Lundgaard. And we're seeing some amazing talent, some future talent going into it in the likes of Juju Noda.
Yeah, I think it's certainly a series that's kind of starting to garner a little bit more reputation. Did Frederik Vesti compete in it as well?
Yes, he did.
So obviously, those Vesti and Lundgaard, two of those examples are actually Danish. So it helps that you've got two talented Danish drivers. But yeah, it is interesting that other talent are starting to be drawn to it as well, and maybe as a cheaper alternative, but because more are going as a cheaper alternative, it's therefore making that grid more competitive.
Yeah, it is.
And
that's what's great.
Yeah, that's...
I think this is another C plus because it does have a while to go, but it's one to keep an eye out on in the future because we're seeing some great Danish. Well, would you say it's better to say Scandinavian or that area?
Yeah, Scandinavian for the area. That's certainly the most high profile.
You see Swedish drives in it and all that as well, and German. You actually see, yeah.
And that rounds up our tier system, and we hope you guys have kind of enjoyed that and found it interesting, and hopefully, you know, obviously we've spoken a little bit more about the series and in terms of giving you a little bit and better understanding of the series below F2 and F3. We thought, you know, in this Corona break, it's a good opportunity to do it.
And just to beat certain people in the comments, yes, I know I left out the Class 2 championships when I was talking about Formula Renault, because I'm going to go back and say Formula Renault is actually an A. Last year was a bit of a disappointment, but are we ranking this on a whole, like, we're just ranking this off like where we think it's going to be and where it's been, or should we take into account last year? What do you think?
Yeah, I think we had to take into account last year, but you know, A or B.
It stays as a B.
Yeah, you know, mate, it's a tier system. It's just an opinion. Those can change in terms of, and if people want to disagree, they can come and have a chat with us. We're always happy to debate.
I mean, if you asked me last year, or even 2 or 3 years ago, I would have said this is A+++. Because I mean, you've had Lando Norris, Pierre Gasly, Daniel Kvyat, Carlos Sainz, Da Costa,
Jack Aitken.
Yeah. I'm kidding. Nick De Vries. There's some amazing talent in it. It's just last year was a bit of a, would you say, letdown?
You can just say it's a bit of a blip. But look, it's hard to...
It's a blip on the radar last year.
Yeah, it's hard to consistently find series, and you know what? It's because everything's kind of so spread out and there isn't this streamlined.
It is. I think in my opinion, the FIA needs to just go in and do some hedge trimming. Yeah, exactly, and just make it a more refined and clear pyramid system. But that is it. Yeah. That is us coming to an end. Those are our thoughts on the kind of feeder, some of the main feeder series, and we've ranked them there. It'd be interesting in the comments below to hear where you rank them, if you have knowledge of the series, or whether you kind of found it useful, or kind of what are your thoughts on some of these series that we have mentioned today. But yeah, we hope you've enjoyed the video, and if they're new around here, Mark, what can they do? Like, subscribe and click the notification button.
Absolutely, so you can keep up to date with all our latest content, with more feeder series videos just like this one, or just F1 content in general. We're trying our best to kind of help you through this Corona break without racing as best as possible. But yeah, hope you enjoyed today. We had a lot of fun doing this video, so we hope you guys have enjoyed it as well. But for now, you F1 fans, keep racing.